Says episode 19. Action.
That is quite amazing. Trying to think.
It's not like Taylor Swift's lucky number 13. Nothing like that, you know.
Is that her lucky number?
Oh, you're not in the loop, dude?
No, but 13's usually unlucky.
Well, that's what I thought too. That's why he's got me a little scary when
Friday
I
the 13th,
got my 13th win.
I'm just saying that number is naturally unlucky. I thought. I didn't know that.
So like Taylor Swift, I guess like she was born on Friday the 13th. Like her favorite number is 13. One of her albums is 13. Yesterday was the 11th day of February. 2 plus 11, 13.
I think this has gone too far.
You know, no, and then, listen, hold up. She had only attended 12 games before yesterday, and yesterday was the 13th game she attended.
Okay. I don't...
Chiefs are bound to win. The dynasty was bound to happen.
I don't agree with any of those conspiracies, but okay.
It just goes into our point.
I like Taylor Swift, but yeah, I don't think that 13 is a lucky or unlucky number. I think it's a number, but I do believe that there's been a lot of extra attention on American football because of Taylor Swift, and good for those industries, good for their money. That's a positive.
You know,
in all
we
directions.
should have gotten Taylor Swift with a foot like with Jack Grealish. Imagine what that would have done to the Premier League.
Well, I saw in
the
her
Premier League would have gone crazy.
I saw in her box, like the private box they were in,
Ice Spice,
all kinds of stars. Yeah, it was full of celebrities, and that's cool. Like it looks like a lot of fun. It looks like they're having a blast. Like that's all I thought of it. I didn't know there were bets going on in the world about how many times the camera would pan to her, and I didn't know there's whole pop culture surrounding every little thing that people do in like famous lives. Like,
I think it's just Taylor Swift, right? To be honest.
No, people love pop culture. All kinds of famous people get that kind of attention to where it's like, who do they like? What are they doing? What do they want? What is this? How many times are we gonna pan to them on the camera? Like, it's a little excessive in my opinion, but it's cool. That's what's hot right now in the country, right? That's what's hot to going on
making
here.
money.
So people want to see it, and they're always going to pan to it because both industries are making great money from it. But it was like I have to say it was a good game at least. Like it ended in the last
I'm
in
glad,
overtime.
That's all you could
play.
ask for, to be honest. Like for any sporting event, as long as it's entertaining, as long as you got like some like actual competition going,
yeah,
perfect.
When I don't have a team to root for in the game, and I'm usually watching a final of any sport that isn't football, I like to pick the team nobody's going for. And in this circumstance, in this case, my whole family are Chiefs fans, and I don't have a preference from American football. Whether my family loves them or not doesn't mean I'm gonna naturally just love them
or hate them.
Well, I chose to go against the Chiefs. Some may say that I can be like the antithesis just for fun. You know, play a devil's advocate just to make things interesting. Some like to put money on the game to make it interesting. I like to vote against my family.
And that makes it interesting for you.
Yeah, because now at least each play I'm like getting these texts like, yeah, and I'm like, no. I really don't care. I just want to fight with my brothers, you know?
Yeah. Keep it spicy.
It's interesting how with brothers, fighting is a form of like flattery and love. It's just like how we get on sometimes.
It just depends, right?
Well, it could be too much sometimes, right? Yeah.
Even with your brothers on a team, right?
And then
lovely blend you brewed today.
Thank you. That is a Starbucks cinnamon cinnamon dulce. It's one of my favorites.
How about we talk about? Good. I mean, now we're talking about Starbucks. We can start talking about dynasties and like, you know, just absolute powerhouses in their own sectors of the marketplace.
That's true.
Starbucks being one of them. You know, they make some busting coffee. But we could talk about, I mean, yesterday we're probably seeing the start of a new dynasty in American football with the Chiefs.
That's true.
You know, going back-to-back, the first time since the Patriots doing that, which is pretty crazy.
I thought it was more impressive that what's his name, Mahomes hasn't lost a playoff game since he's kind of started the whole runs. And not just that, I don't even think he had thrown an interception in a playoff game until yesterday. So the dude, when the games matter, is switched on. And
He's
that,
clutch.
I mean, that takes a lot of focus, energy, and I'm just going to go out and say it, a bit of luck too. To do it so consistently for so long, so many years in a row, it's a concoction of multiple things, multiple variables that leads to what could be defined as a dynasty. Because that word's definition is a little bit, it's not pinpointed.
You want to bring it up?
Yeah, I was looking at it before, and it's like, it's more of like a relation to like multiple years of heirs of the same family. A dynasty, like back in the day, would be a family owning a land for multiple living generations and the sharing of that name. Now, when we put the context of sport into dynasty, we talk about it as a team that's experienced a prolonged period of success at the hardest level that the game has to offer. And when you look at those two things, it's like the connection of the word's definition doesn't necessarily match the way that we put it into the sports context. But when you see a team win the Super Bowl, how many times in the last 5 years has Chiefs won it?
I think 3.
3 or 4? I couldn't tell you, but I can tell you.
No, 3.
That's a dynasty. That's a team that is successfully on top more years than they're not. That's a league dynasty. There's different types, right? Like,
Is there different types, at least in football or like in football? And in football, you could say there is because of the different levels, the different leagues, the different actual like teams that are playing against each other. You know, like I guess you could say like in the Olympics there could be dynasties for sports like hockey that have like the NHL per se.
yeah, I guess it could be argued. There is no difference of a dynasty. A dynasty is the definition of a team that's experiencing success at the highest level across their board. The other side of the argument says, well, in American football, they just have to win their domestic cup and then multiple years in a row to become a dynasty. But in Europe, well, not European football, but in football across the world, you have to not only win your domestic cup, you have to win what international cups come with winning your domestic cup. And then you have to go out and defend kind of other smaller tournaments within your nation.
So let's go back like a year before, since Man City didn't win the Champions League yet. I mean, wouldn't that still be a dynasty even though they didn't win the FA Cup or the Carabao Cup like every year? They won it a lot.
Yeah, so
But
like
they won the biggest trophy domestically. They won the Prem almost like, what was it, like 5 out of 6 years, something like that?
yeah, and my question then is still to beg the question, how do you weigh those two dynasties? Whereas Man City, to complete a treble, has to win international cups, domestic cups, multiple tournaments, and it's a culmination of all of those trophies in one season where people start to say, wow, that's amazing. We don't start to define it as a dynasty until they start doing that multiple years in a row. But what if it was just the league, the domestic cup, the English league, which is as hard to win as the NFL is in America? Well, Man City could be defined as a dynasty, 100%. But I know a lot of people that would say right here, right now, that Man City isn't a dynasty because they haven't won multiple Champions Leagues in a row with their domestic cup run-ups.
I also know people that they would argue that Man City or these like new teams like Chelsea will never become dynasties because of the history that they didn't have as a club, which I don't know. That could be a different, even a whole different definition.
No, it's right in line because dynasty has to do with history. History is, like the prolonging of a name.
As Jose would say, the heritage.
But if you want to create a dynasty, it starts with winning, and it starts with prolonged periods of success. So, like, you start with the winning, and it leads into a great successful year like City have had this year. They go in and win the treble next season. Could anybody say they're not a dynasty? I should say this season. Could anybody say they're not a dynasty? Now with 5 out of 6 domestic cups and 2 out of 3 Champions Leagues, while in that second year that they lost it, they were there at the Final Four. I think they didn't make it to the final, but the Final Four.
No, they lost to Madrid, remember, in that game.
And that game was brilliant.
Insane.
Madrid was so, like, comeback.
That was a year. Phew. That was a year.
But it's one of these things where we go back to define the dynasty. It's not the most clearest definition. You don't need heritage to build a dynasty, to have a dynasty. Or else how could you create it? And so it doesn't matter what club you're at. The definition would be prolonged periods of success at the highest level of your game. And any club is capable of doing that. But I have a personal belief, a firm belief, that money is necessary for that to be accomplished. And the way you get money is by getting top of your domestic cup. And then you get better TV rights and you get better players who want to play for your team because now you're going to international cups. Then you get into the final rounds.
So question, good question. What comes first, the winning or the money?
The winning. But how do you get there without the money?
You need to have a good coach, a good scouting team that brings you like gems out of the rough.
Let's just say that.
Let's say like a Leicester City type scenario.
Exactly. I was going to say there are 10 clubs you'll come into and the money's there. They go, here, spend it all, build your team. The other 90% of clubs don't have this luxury. You have to start with winning, with the pieces that you're given. And like at the end of the day, when you don't have that luxury, we'll talk about proper preparation prevents poor performance. And the only way you could properly prepare in that situation is by looking at all the pieces that you're given and giving yourself the best strategy to use those pieces to win. If you're capable of doing that, people will start to trust in your tactics and your ability to manage the team, and the team will start going higher in the league. If you have success in one of your first inaugural seasons with that program, the next season, you're probably going to have more money at your disposal. Not only due to the trust from the program you're working for, we're talking football at the highest level right now, but we're also talking about the TV rights, the filming rights, all of the money that comes in from sponsorship increases, the better your team does.
Or the people that you sell to, because other bigger teams are going to want your good players. Mm-hmm. And I think that may be an issue, like, with the prevention or these small clubs not creating dynasties because they don't have the cash influx that they receive after actually winning isn't enough compared to them actually selling their players and making money off of them.
But a cash influx of winning multiple years in a row is. And that's where the challenge of creating a dynasty comes. You could say teams don't always become dynasties just from experiencing an incredible successful season. Because we can go back to like a Porto situation with Jose, and it's one of these moments where after they won, everybody gets picked off by better clubs, better teams, even the coach himself. So you can't always maintain that level of success in the environment in which you're in, and creating a dynasty isn't always possible for any and every club. Again, I'll go back to say I have a firm belief that money needs to be present in order for a dynasty to be created. But I think the other hardest part about that is teams, people, they don't do super well spending more than 4 or 5 years together without experiencing an extreme amount of success. Because if you spend that much time together and you haven't experienced an extreme amount of success or any success at all, does it feel like you're headed in the right direction? Because you asked a great question. It's like, well, what comes first, the money or the winning? Well, the winning, because that's where you have to start. But when you dive into that question, the winning comes from the process, the preparation. And that is actually the day in and the day out how you become and work towards a dynasty. But then, let's say you get to that pinnacle. You won your first mountain. You got to the top of the first mountain. And once you got there, people started buying all of your team. The people that helped you get you there. And then you were offered a contract to join another team and lead a different team. Everybody that's in the party in the house has to be devoted to each other more than they are themselves in order for a dynasty to continue to grow. How rare is that nowadays?
Or at least the major factors, like the major X factor players need to stay.
We talk about the core, right?
Yeah, so let's say like then with the Chiefs, like Mahomes can't leave. Or let's say with the Bulls back when MJ can't leave.
Nope.
Or Scotty. Like maybe some people can go. Maybe some people just aren't fit to be there.
100%.
But the dynasty must go on with the people leading it. And that's what I think also makes a dynasty a dynasty. Having someone there that is going to set the example for the team when everything is looking awful. I mean, we look at the best teams that have been on this earth of soccer, and the biggest dynasties. And you've got Pele being the leader of Brazil. The hallmark, obviously, he had other people with him like Garrincha and whatnot.
One word, Galacticos. All
Yeah.
of the Galacticos.
Yeah.
Every one of them that
And
led
then
that
even
dynasty.
back then, like in the 2010s era, you got Ronaldo spearheading. Obviously, he had help with Sergio Ramos and Toni Kroos, Luka Modric. You can go, the list goes on and on.
The 3-year Barca period with Messi.
Messi being the top dog. Like they have to
There's a
have
leader.
they have to have some person that's like on top.
But
because
not,
if not, then
just the coaching leader, an on-the-field leader.
Mhm.
A game changer. And those people are rare.
Oh
And
yeah.
not only are those people rare, but the entire world wants those people. So keeping those people is even harder. And then surrounding people around them that they enjoy being around to make the whole thing blossom.
Because imagine them like wouldn't their legacy become the X factor. His legacy wouldn't it be better if he would prove himself not only in one place, but like improving himself in one dynasty and then going to another place and making another dynasty. That'd mean that he's Mr. Big. Whoa.
Hey,
Wow.
some people, that's an age-old debate. Some people look at Steven Gerrard's, people of that nature and say, that's harder to do. Other people debate that, no, picking yourself up
Like
and
Brady.
going around and raising it
I
to
look
the next
at Brady
level.
and I go, "Boah, that guy's
Yeah,
top."
when that happens, I always think, man, that player is bigger than the game itself.
Yeah.
I always think that way because I'm like, it doesn't matter which team ends up with this, or who they have, as long as he's with them, they're in the final.
Yeah.
And that's how you know, okay, that guy's bigger than the game. And realistically, there are people like that in football, but I feel like there's more of them in football. Also, I feel like there's more chance.
Go back.
built in.
In football or in football?
That's a good point. I feel like there's more of those X Factor game changer players in football.
In football.
So football.
Okay.
Because in American football, there's like a handful of guys I can think of they can put the team on their back and change a game. I can think of one or two in every country in the world when it comes to that, when it goes to football. And that's the interesting part where I think, okay, there's the Messis, there's the Mbappes, there's Ronaldos, there's the Salahs, there's game changers everywhere. In fact, every club would boast they have one. And so the interesting part
Except
of that,
Arsenal.
that's because we're a true team, a team balanced across the board that's going to win the league.
Oh,
because of
that
we're
got Z
balanced.
triggered.
See, he crossed the decimal and now Zeke's pissed. But no, I truly think in the sense that, like, there are a lot more game changers in football.
But you could also attest that to, like, there being way more teams in football.
Of course, that's naturally
Because if
so.
there was more teams in American football, then of course there'd be more superstars.
My argument was it just makes the game more interesting to me. Because every time I see teams line up against each other, it's more of like a who knows who will win. I don't see too many nowadays where I'm like, okay, just because Messi's on the field, that's a game over. It's not like that. But Tom Brady's on the field. I'm like, oh, it might be a game over. And people
then
are starting to
it's also
feel
a
that way
different-
about Mahomes because of how successful he is.
And
right
it's
now.
also a different game, too, where, like, that game is pretty much dominated by one person having the ball in his hands. At football, you know? Like, your team can win or lose based off of that one person.
Yeah, that's an interesting part about that game. Is that highlight is totally on the quarterback, and I have no problem watching American football. I don't have a particular team that I love, but one thing is for sure. If I had to pick a position to play, that would be the last position I would ever play. I would never want to have to be right under the spotlight, constantly being protected from getting knocked the out. In having to like keep my mind on what's past me, knowing that everything right here is about to kill me. That sounds the difference between I would enjoy maybe running back. Give me the ball, let me run at the other line. And people go, what's the difference? Well, the difference is I get to go back at them and at least use my own momentum instead of standing here waiting to get creamed. That just seems like a really, really intensely hard position to play.
And that's
takes
what
a certain
that's
type
what
of
makes
person.
football even more complex, because it's not just either a small amount of people like in basketball making decisions. It's a 11-man squad.
Now that Arsenal thing ain't sounding so bad, isn't it?
No, but Wanda. They need to make a collective
6-0
decision.
this weekend, 6-0.
Hey, you're still in what, third?
Yeah.
Oh, third.
We're doing well though. I'm
crazy.
Nothing more to say about that.
Since we're talking about that now in our teams, how about we start transitioning over to your high school team, man?
Yeah.
You guys ended up the season. How we feeling?
I'm feeling all right about it. Not overwhelmingly joyful as we didn't make it into the playoffs. Not devastated as our season ended in a 7-1 record. I believe is more positive than last season as far as results go. But besides that, my major project with this team, with this program, I felt was quite a success. Thank you.
Low.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
That was actually good timing.
It's perfect. I just rolled with it. But it's one of those things. I know.
Is he like
but
that?
It's one of those things where I came into the team, and let's just say the team had a lot of things that we needed to work on. Things in between each other, interpersonally, in order to make the team work together and focus on a shared goal. Understand how to work with one another and take into account what other people are thinking, even though, like you just said, it takes 11 people sharing in the workload, but the decision making, everybody's got to be on point. Football is an incredibly unselfish game. And our team, the amount of progress we made in building a group that actually cared for one another, was able to communicate in a manner that was positive, but also critical, where we could give information and receive it. Maybe in a way prior to me arriving, all of that information was given in a way where it would turn their teammates off in a very negative sense. And I guess the point I'm trying to make is I could not be more proud of how respectful they were to each other, to me, to the staff, to the opponents, to the game itself. Whereas everything in my gut was telling me if this team is going to be successful in the future, the first thing they have to fix is how they get on with one another. And then the second thing we have to fix is how do we get on against the opponents, the refs, because the league has been saying in the past it hasn't been too pretty. And you have a reputation there. And so the positive, again, I'm talking about how proud I am, the positive steps that we took this year, was that the team came together. That these guys now realize, oh, mate, we're in for the long run. And it's a young team. And coach is starting to change the most important things so that we can step towards the real parts of the game that are going to change those outcomes, those numbers.
Hey, just to give you a little satisfaction on your part, last season, your team went 5-10-1 with a win percentage record of 34%. And now this season you went 500, 15% increase.
Yeah, and I'll tell you,
pretty good.
And out of those 7 losses, there was 3 of those that we were there in it. That tie was probably one of our best games we played. It was one of the best opponents in the league. But 7 of those losses,
3 of the 7.
3 of the 7 were really tough to take. Because these were games we were either winning or we had the midst to tie, and things just didn't go our way from one way or the other. But again, I'll go back to say yes, there was an increase in our record. We missed the playoff spot by 1 match. And realistically, there were a lot of these games where we were right there. We're in them. I wasn't blown out in any game. One game, 6-1. And this was also the team that ended up taking our spot at the end of the day, which is beautiful in a way and also terrible in another way. As if to say that they deserve it, and we didn't. And this is why. But that's okay, because I can recognize that the steps that we're taking are leading towards getting to the top of the mountain. And we'll go back to say, like, what's more important in creating a dynasty or a successful program, winning or finances? Well, winning. But how do you get to winning? The process. What was the process with this group? It was making sure that these people respected one another in order to share a common goal, and when going got rough, they wouldn't be barking, they'd be focused. And I have to say, the amount of comments I got from other coaches in the league, like, boy, what have you done? Because compared to last season, the style of play, the way they speak, the respect, we want you to stay here. The coaches of the league, like, proud of the way that we were able to change as a group. What's not to be more proud of? We're talking about human beings learning to respect not only the game, but each other, and becoming a team. When I first came in, I came in with 2 weeks before the league, or like a month before the league was going to kick off. Short period of time to prepare. And a lot of the things that I was saying to myself at the time was, if we can fix this, next season, we're going to be amazing. But also, let's have a good season this season. We'll see if we can accelerate that process.
Mm-hmm.
And I had to say, I got caught right in between, somewhere right in the middle, right? Where we did make this positive step forward. We just missed the mark. And although that can be really frustrating, you have a choice to make when you're given a loss. You have a choice to learn from everything that has happened and to take that information and use it as motivation to be better and grow. Or you can dwell, sulk, and move on without taking anything from the situation. And I know which one I am, and I know which one I'm going to present to my boys to be. And I know in the spring and in the summer we'll spend more time together preparing the football tactics. I even spent the whole weekend reflecting on the reason that maybe the decisions I made in the games that could have been tactically wiser to change outcomes, the results of those matches. But at the same time,
because you as a coach, you can win, you can help win games very slightly, but you could very easily mess up the tactics and lose a game for your team.
There are lots of variables too. In my last game, I had my star striker roll his ankle in the activation, and those kinds of variables that can change outcomes. But also, you can only connect the dots looking backwards, right? Steve Jobs. And in reflection upon these games, I realized that I was increasingly offensive. And we went up a lot of games, but went down a lot of games after going up. And the solution to that is being offensive to the point in which you take the reins of a match and then learning to be defensive when the moments come. This is
good learning experience.
This is important
Yeah.
for me and my realizations to recognize that this is what I could do. And I've said it before and I'll say it again. When challenges come, failures or successes arrive, make sure upon reflection you look in the mirror before you're pointing any fingers. That's where all the lessons come from, when you're able to, okay, what could I have done better? And in that, you'll see other variables you couldn't control, you could control, and all these kinds of things. But at the end of the day, I could not be more proud of that team. The way they upheld themselves, the way they upheld each other, the way that we played. Certain games too direct, but it's also my doing. So it's a successful year in my mind, where I'm sure in the players' mouths it tastes bitter at the moment. But for me, if they could hear me now, it would be use that as motivation so we can go into the spring and the summer and have fuel to get better work in, to get better at our football, to get better understanding. And I'm not talking just them, it's me, myself, and I too. It's the reflections on how do I make the team better? How do I make the individual better? And staying committed to the process, because the process is never giving up, it's only getting better. You know, and I have a firm belief in that Kaizen mentality. 1% better every day. That's it. So then, it's unfortunate, but on to the next one, in the sense that now we have time to prepare for the next season. We have a beautiful field,
And you have a way
young players,
longer time to prepare.
and we don't have to learn who each other are now. We know. We get on as a team. We know each other. They know me. I know them. The moments where I would be venting maybe too long in a session, they're able to be like, yo, coach, let's get to it. And that takes a few months. Like, that doesn't happen in the first weeks, But that's enough about my team. I know you would love to talk about yours. Because you said months ago, I want to accomplish this thing. I said to you, not impossible, but I said, be realistic. Those were my words. I was like, be realistic. And here you set your sights to the very top. And you upheld your group, not only in a structural manner, in the way that you presented certain goals and aspirations, but in a day-to-day manner, the process to success. So the viewers know, tell us about what your season was like this year.
Well, I didn't want to say it because it's like, in baseball when a pitcher has like a perfect game.
Yes.
And someone in the 7th inning or like when the game's about to end goes like, hey, you're on a perfect game, buddy. Like, you only need 6 more outs, dude. You're so close. And that's like the automatic
the tension's in the air and you don't want to add to it, so you just like watching intently. Yeah. Don't bring any attention to it.
So that's what happened this season. We had a very big goal in mind, and I think we're going to talk about some invincible type season, going undefeated for 15 games, 13 wins and only 2 ties. I think the first main thing that happened in that season was that when setting up goals and making goals for the team, I made sure that the goals were based off of what the players wanted, not what I wanted. And that was something that you had brought up when we actually had this talk about goal setting, and like that first meeting as a team is very important.
It was like, pose the question, don't tell them.
Exactly. Yeah. And so posing the question gave them the opportunity to make sure that it wasn't my goal that they wanted, it was their goal. So then from there, I had a little carrot on top of their head that I could dangle over, because it wasn't me that wanted it, it's them. And I could have just dangled this carrot over and being like, it's you guys that want it, right? It ain't me. I'd be more messed up if I wanted more than them. And so that was one of the first things that I would say led to our success as a team, knowing what we actually wanted to succeed. And then actually having moments of tough moments of adversity, moments that maybe we didn't actually lose or fall short in that sense, but we didn't meet our goal, meet our expectation of winning. And we tied a game, I think it was the 3rd game of the season, we tied it 1-1. And it was a tough tie because it was a semifinal, quote unquote, that if we didn't win it, we wouldn't make a final of a preseason tournament. And me, I've only won that preseason tournament. So me being me, I wanted to win it because I'd won it 2 years in a row, and I wanted to make the dynasty of my team in that tournament, winning it 3 years in a row, back to back to back. And I felt so upset when we tied that game, like the boys did as well, because they knew that they had played down to their level of the opponent. They knew that it wasn't a good game. And so all I could think of in the reflection after the game was, this is a good thing.
Yeah.
This is good to happen.
A little fuel to the fire, I guess you could say.
Yeah, it brings us back to earth, It brings us back to we felt this emotion. We know what the emotion of not meeting our expectation is. Now imagine what the emotion of not meeting our goal would be like. It'd be even worse, 10 times worse. So then that was, like you said, fuel to their fire. Like, hey, if you want to not lose, If you want to keep your goal alive, you got to be better. And you have to be better.
This isn't what you wanted, right? You wanted more than this.
Then one of the main things that I would say throughout the whole season was make sure that it's in your hands. We were such a good team that we had enough talent to actually control games. And when you're able to do that, you actually have to not be afraid to do it. Because some people will just rather not have the ball and then, oh, easy. Easy for me because it's not my problem. It's the other person's problem. A mistake, whatever. But for us, being such a high, good, talented team, we have to make sure that we take everything in our hands. And whatever times happened, whatever happened that actually made us tie another game was because of things that we didn't do. It wasn't things that the other team did well.
Well, this is what makes an undefeated season so valuable, because you know throughout the course of a season you're going to experience moments of adversity, moments where your players are being human, when they're not up to par, when they're not as good as they could be. And managing all of those situations, including more that are unspoken, are the complexities of ending through a season undefeated. Whether it be 15 games or 35, it's hard. It's very hard to do. And even for the reasons we've talked about before about chance that's built into the game. There's a chance there, even if you did everything right, you could still lose. So you're fighting against those odds as well. So you put all of those variables together, and you should be incredibly proud, you and the boys, of the job that you've done this season. Because it's rare, it's hard, and honestly, it's to be celebrated. It's to be celebrated.
Oh, the boys did some celebrating.
I'm sure.
I can tell you that.
I'm sure.
To say the least.
I'm sure.
And I think the way that we actually ended the final game with 10 men playing a whole half, my man down. That was, one of the boys said it was scripted. It was as if like FIFA actually from their headquarters in Switzerland were like, hey, these guys are going to not play their final half and see if they're actually about it.
I used to tell my first freshman and JV teams that this is my World Cup. This is our Champions League. Like, this is important. And giving them that importance gives them that internal motivation to go on and play every moment like that. And when you're 10 men down, or you're 1 man down, you got 10 on the field with just a little bit to go before your undefeated season is there, there's a lot to play for.
No, and
there shouldn't be any lack of intrinsic
was,
motivation going on there.
And it was a pure blessing to see everyone contribute. Like, that was an added bonus. Because people that maybe were not so high in the roster had to come in to make sure that some people would be able to get a little rest. So, like, all of these people are just trying to work their butts off to make sure that we all reach our goal.
Yeah, upholding the bottom line. Yeah. And you know me, I love when I can get everybody involved and still have success. Those are some of the best games. I call them the perfect day, right? When you got everybody in, you got the win, you got the points you needed, everybody feels included and part of. You're going home like, thank you. Did that well. So did they, obviously, because they did it, right? But at the end of the day, you were able to make all the decisions that included everybody and led to the result that people were looking for. Now, you get to the undefeated season point, still, I'm telling you, 10 years of coaching in 40-plus teams, it's rare. It is to be appreciated. But also, recognize the people who created dynasties, like the Michael Jordans, like the Kobe Bryants, like any of those guys, the top of the pinnacle. What would they say immediately after they win a championship?
On to the next one, man.
Yeah.
Like,
that's what makes a dynasty.
That's sick.
That's what makes a champion.
Yeah.
Is that, all right, now the job is done. And you
probably
celebrated it.
And you have fun because that's what you need to do. But then
now it's time to do it again. And that mentality isn't for the program or for the dynasty success. We can go all the way microscope in and say that's for the individual to become the best person that they can become so that they can continue to be a part of elite environments that are trying to create a dynasty. Because the process leads to the wins leads to the dynasty. The wins also bring the money that leads to the dynasty. But it's a process. Don't worry about none of that. If you focus on your growth and the team's growth, every day in, day out, wins or losses, championships or not, you're going to become the greatest version of yourself. That self is going to give your program the best opportunity of winning. That's a hard thing because it takes a lot from the individual. But I very, very firmly believe that you're in a situation where, one, you could be that for your players, and your players can learn from that mentality to continue building a dynasty. It's not the easiest thing, man. We're talking words right now. But it means you got to go out and do it, right?
No, but it's good that I
Actions
did
are
it.
larger than words.
It's good that I did it my first year because now I have like ammo. Like no matter where I go, no matter where people like start questioning me, like questioning my techniques, my abilities, whatever, I could just be like, look, this is what I can do with the right people. And maybe it's your guys' fault for not being the right people for me. Like, so I don't know. Because if I've done this once, who says I can't do it again? What if is that just a fluke?
I agree. I understand. I also sit with 9 more years of season experience just to say the reason I told you it's so rare is because even if you went in next year and did everything right, you could still lose.
Oh, yeah.
So,
for
yes,
sure.
you're given that ammunition in a sense, but at the same time, and it's given you like a benchmark of the pinnacle of what is need to be taken. Gives you a little bit of weight when you're having conversations about your coaching ability. But again, you go back to the drawing board and you say, okay, this is how we could be better. Because that's what your job is there. And right now, even sitting at the top, how could you be better? That's the way you want to continually be thinking.
I can't. I reached my maximum form.
You can. I promise, if I watched every one of your games from start to finish, from the 15 matches, I'm sure I could pick out at least 5 things you could improve on.
Nah.
And the same for you to me, I guarantee it. That's the growth of a coach. It's never done. Take it from experience. You're never done. And although an incredibly successful season, how are you going to create the longevity? That's what you need to aim for. Right? There's nothing wrong with aiming for the pinnacle in a consistent basis. And I think that's what you need to take. Not to mention, you still have what? A period of time now where you get to join the varsity team in their playoff run. Now you get to get a little foot in the door and taste of what it's like to do it at that level.
No, and that's like for me, obviously now that I have my own team, like I want them to succeed, but the main goal in the beginning of the season is to add more stars to this badge.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I tell the varsity coach. That's what I'm going to be telling the boys. Like, this is the actual, like,
yeah,
it's time to lock in now. It's time that this is actually the season.
And you're really just part of that whole pyramid process, in a sense.
Oh, yeah.
You're trying to raise your JV players in a successful and developmental way so that they can lead that varsity team to putting another star on the shirt. And that's what your job is there, in a sense, when you grand scheme it.
Yeah.
But when you scope in, winning the league and teaching those players, that's the best way you could go about it. It's on point, right? But it's a never-ending process. That's the part. And the pieces of the board change. That's the harder part, too.
That's for me going to be not to throw shade, but, like, I've seen this freshman team, and, like,
whoa.
I'm going to be...
Whoa! Whoa! But, when the pieces changes, you have to change yourself.
But it's good. I already got a carrot in mind already for them to dangle over their head.
Yeah, okay.
So be ready.
The
Shout out Romo. I'm excited to see you,
Romo.
dog.
Okay.
It's hilarious.
If you need any advice, you can find me at ZJ, guys.
No, like, and the moments that we created this season, I'm so glad that one of my friends was at our house or at the game. He was able to document some cool moments that we got. They'll be up on at Coach JCKM. You can find all those moments.
Yeah, it's hard. It's also hard, right, to stay on the top. Like, there's so many variables that just don't keep certain teams at the pinnacle. From players coming in, to money coming in, to the ability to have the right pieces, for the pieces to work together, for the competition to not get a hot hand, There's so many of these things, right?
For the competition not being the absolute best version of themselves in that day.
That's what they're trying to do all the time, every day. And I think, like, how many teams stay at the pinnacle of football in their respective zones?
So this is another topic that we could talk about, like people that play against dynasties. Would you say that players have a different type of fire, different type of sense in their step on a day that they're going to play, let's say, a Real Madrid or a Barcelona, or let's say a St. Augustine JV team,
Yes.
versus, let's say, they're going to play against a crappy team like, I don't know, Mallorca or whatever.
Yes, but I think it could be beneficial and detrimental. When you come with that mentality.
How could it be detrimental?
If the
It could be
opponent,
detrimental not for that day, but for other days.
sure, let's say I'm the powerhouse, right? And you're David, and I'm Goliath. And I know that you're so, like, you've got that energy that you're going to come and step in a high intense press. And I'm aware that this is the way that you are, and these decisions that come from your emotional ability or, like, emotional state and the way that you're playing. And because I'm aware of that, it gives me a one step up to know exactly how you're going to react, exactly what you're going to do, exactly where you're going to step, because you're in that zone, you're in that mental state. And experienced dynasty level players, you can use that against you. A higher level awareness of what their opponents are going to do. That leads to success for the dynasty. Or you come out, you're hard pressed, you've chosen to put your foot in, you're Ryan Gaining, you're getting in, okay? And
Shout out Ryan Game. Shout out.
And your press has caused panic because a few moments have led to unsuccessful actions of this Goliath. And somehow they let compounding errors lead to momentum shifts. Where would I heard that?
Check back episode 18, baby.
And usually dynasties don't let that happen, right? But your Ryan Gain, your press, your all that pressure can lead to this. It's just normally an experienced dynasty level team and player doesn't let that pressure affect them in that manner, or doesn't let compounding mistakes lead to momentum shifts. They know how to mitigate or limit their risks. And so this is the difference, right? It's like, yes, it can happen, but more so, I'm going to bet on the dynasty in that situation. It's Real Madrid versus Girona this past weekend. And they go, we know you're hot.
But you
But
can't.
we're amazing.
I want the
So
context.
come. We'll show you how we do this.
Context.
Dude, you asked me what the score
Girona
was.
is not a power. Girona's like not like a
They're
David.
David right now.
They're not David.
Spain?
They're like they're bigger than Barcelona right now.
Okay, but they're David in Spain right now because they haven't won a league in how many years?
And they're like, all right, they're like the biggest, strongest David.
Okay, and then
in
Leverkusen is German's David. Even though it's a massive club, isn't it?
Leverkusen.
But they haven't won in how many years?
I think they're the club of the choke, actually. Leverkusen.
What do you mean by that? The club of the choke.
Yeah, like a Tottenham. Like a
Oh, I know what you're saying now.
Yeah, of course you know what I mean.
I don't think they're going to do that.
Because no, not this year, because it's different mentality.
And
but
so
like,
right now,
like legacy, historic heritage.
Well, right now,
the
he's
heritage
the dynasty killer.
Of the Leverkusen is.
Xabi is a dynasty killer right now.
Yeah.
He's like on a warpath to be like the rebel army to just destroy.
So, final question about this dynasty before we go into a new revelation, a new product, maybe for Train Zone Sports. Watch out.
I hate it. What?
We're gonna talk about can a dynasty killer become the king of the dynasty? Because it's different dynamics. You got to think about the mentality of a David versus the mentality of a Goliath. You know.
Trying to think that the only team I recall doing that lately is Manchester City. I can't think of another club that was like so small.
You don't even have to look at a club. It could be like a coach that like went from a super small to.
Now that situation
giant.
is definitely there. That situation is more common than a program being a dynasty killer and rising to become a dynasty. So a lot has to happen in that. We can look at City's past and say, okay, those are the things, into some regard. But
Fair.
I think, as far as people, yeah, all the time. People make a statement for themselves in these smaller areas, countries, leagues, places where they were a vastly impactful person and player for this group or coach. People recognize that. And they bring them to places where they give them more resources or the pieces that they need in order to help them take the person that they have their sights on off their perch. And don't get it wrong. In every league, in every country, somebody has a target on their back. Every single club. Every single league. Somebody is sitting at the top with everybody with hate and despise, like we need to take them down. You're always looking for the pieces that can help you do that. And so, honestly, very often do I feel like you're a great player on a team, a great coach on a team, you have an extreme amount of success at where you're at, you won the league, or you were on a team that has never won the league and now they've won the league for the first time because you were part of most of those moments. I guarantee the first thing that's going to happen is you're going to have a contract for someone bigger to help you try to do it on a bigger stage before you have the contract in front of you that says stay and help us do it again here. But that's just money again, coming back into football.
Going back to the same point.
And controlling the way that people move. Money controls the world, whether you like it or not, unfortunately. And football in the last 10 to 15 years has increased dramatically in its financial gains, in spending, in limits, all of these things. And so the game itself is being directed by that money, straight up. So it's one of these things that, yeah, dynasty killers can become dynasties themselves. But I think it's more about a bunch of dynasty killers coming together to a new project at the same time and all buying into this new project and becoming an identity, like identifying with this project, to where now you have a group of these dynasty killers, and then they got to mesh. We're talking about leaps and bounds of what needs to happen to get these things to happen.
That's next level.
And when it does, now you got a group of killers that have something to prove, a chip on their shoulder. And once they prove it, now they have the target on their back, and they remember what it was like looking at the target.
It sounds like almost like an Aston Villa type story with Unai Emery.
But they unfortunately kind of had a cold cut to that story this weekend.
Yeah.
Because United beat them.
Yeah, and also the players that they have people that are coming from like Moussa Diaby from Leverkusen. You've got Douglas Luiz, Yuri Tielemans that was at Leicester City, and like him being a star.
And football's a weird sport, man. Look at how even on Arsenal we got rid of Xhaka out of our midfield, and now he's on Leverkusen as one of the most impactful pieces of that puzzle. So we're going to talk about dynasty killers becoming parts of dynasties, or even just successful or mediocrely successful players joining a team and now becoming majorly successful. Take the word dynasty out of that whole situation because they're not there yet. But this is how the movement of players leads to the benefit and the growth of certain people and maybe detrimental to others. I went and I said before we started the podcast, this particular transfer window has been so interesting. For in the past, 3 transfer windows, it's been so busy. Every day, more news. This one, nothing. Something's going on with the money in football right now where people are starting to find places where they enjoy being, or they're experimenting with completely new places like Saudi Arabia and other places in MLS. And this is an interesting part because I guess I'd say more players are moving apart from ultimate teams, and they're trying to become the leader of their own teams now. And I like this. I like this a lot. Like I said, there's an X factor. Every team you go look for, you'll see somebody that's a game changer.
Yeah.
They also want that pride on their back to say, I'm that guy, and I get paid like that guy, but I need to perform like that guy. And I don't know, in the long run, is this good or bad for football? I love to watch superstars play, but isn't that what international football is about?
But then it's also good, like you said, to be diversified. And if there's a bunch of superstars, the more superstars you can watch in every game, that make every game interesting to watch.
And a dynasty is more likely to have a group of superstars than it is to have 1 or 2.
Exactly. And so, going on to this final topic of the day, this news broke out last week or 2 weeks ago about this new rule. Apparently they want to make soccer more like hockey now.
Kind of like that.
They shouldn't. If they're gonna make it like hockey, they should. I saw somebody. They instead of making the blue card a new rule, they should make fighting allowed. In
No.
Then that could be the best of both
I don't want to
worlds.
watch you go to a sin bin. I want to see you throw some.
Yeah, and wouldn't that be
They
better?
don't throw you in the sin bin.
After you guys beat each other.
That
up.
would be better.
And then think about the entertainment purpose of football.
I would like to watch them fight rather than flop. I'll tell you that.
Dude, double whammy then. Now we're talking about
Oh shit.
increasing viewership as well as making games faster. I don't know if it'll make games faster. It'll probably make games more interesting, though.
Doesn't it sound like a catch-22 to you? Like they say, we want to bring the blue card in to avoid how much time people are wasting. But then by spending more time sending a player off the field for 10 minutes because they're arguing, you're going to actually add more time to the game where some team is going to be in a numerical advantage for 10 minutes.
And then some team is going to want to be wasting time for 10 minutes while they don't have all their men.
Or what about baiting the opponents into getting double sin bins and then scoring, and then the game starts to be more, like, tactically corrupt? I would say right now, if I was playing against one of your teams and your team was being mentally chippy, and my team had lost their emotional control, and now I have two players in the sin bin, and we were on the back end in that mental game, we're going to lose in that 10-minute period in that game. Because of what? They couldn't hold their emotions? It's an emotional sport. But at the same time, youth and pros, there's a separation there. But either way, sin bin, blue card for youth, there's no way. Sin bin for pros, why? Save time? You really think that's going to work?
One of my friends said a really good quote. He's like, if they can't even get to fully understand how to use VAR at the moment right now, which is Monday, February 12th of 2024, how are they going to add another rule?
Oh, yeah.
Like, what's the difference between a yellow card and a blue card? I can't tell you.
I said it should have been orange. I don't know why they went blue. It's yellow and red makes I don't know.
It'd be
why
like
they go blue.
the in-betweeny card.
Yeah, they wanted
Maybe
contrast.
they have another plan for orange, that's why.
I just think it's really, really like I think Ange said it best. Like most sports around the world are trying to trim the fat, and we're like trying to add on to it. We're making more of a mess in our game. Where more people across the world in all of their games are making it more streamlined and trimming the time in betweens.
For the TikTokers.
And don't get me wrong, I've always loved football for the reason that it's free-flowing form. That's what I loved about it. Growing up, people ask, why don't you watch American football? Because it's stop and go, and my brain doesn't work as stop and go. My brain is fluid. It needs to be constantly one thing to the next. And with the blue card, with the VAR, with the increase in severity to punishment for fouls, the game is becoming more chippy and blocky. People always use game restart moments and set pieces as moments to slow momentum and take control of particular situations. But now it's going to be used in a manner that, to me, does not respect the game. I can't say does not respect the rules of the game because here is the organization changing the rule itself. But from my perspective, my understanding of the game, it's a disrespect. And it takes the game further away from where it needs to be or where it should be in my mind. Is a game that is free-flowing form, that has human error built into it, that allows for players to play.
I think they're taking away that human error. They want to take away the human error from the referee. And let's say, like, even in a sport like baseball where the umpire has to judge a ball going at 100 miles an hour and try and make sure that it's inside of this imaginary box, it's insane.
I get that, but football's, although reading the offsides line can be and can't be like this, watching football...
That's probably the most bang-bang comparison.
The closest, yeah. It's like watching football 10 years ago was 10 times more interesting knowing what happened as soon as that ball was played and the decision was made right in your eyes in the instant.
Yeah, but then it wasn't true all the time.
Made more sense. We get things wrong with the camera on the line now. In fact, even when they show the camera in the Arsenal game this past weekend, in impactful 2-0, as a moment where we go up, I think, The angle of the camera isn't even showing us any relevant information. We're just trusting the line that they draw. That conclusion could have been made 10, 15 years ago in a quarter of amount of time, the same manner, correctly. So that argument that says, well, now we could get things wrong, we still do, even with the cameras. And so is the breaking of the time and the flow of the game worth the time that we're losing? To be correct. There's a balance. I'm not saying it's yes or no. I'm saying there's a balance there. And now we're still headed in the other direction, to add more time, to try to be more, these players, they can't be talking to the refs. There's more respect in the game. Man, I don't know if that's the move for football in a sense right now. Football needs to go back to flowing.
Do you think players should be able to talk to refs?
Captains can.
Only
Players
the captain, though.
Your player talks to your captain talks to the ref. The same way, if you go to any respectable large business, there's a chain of command, and you follow the chain of the command in order to be as professional as possible. This is the same thing going on in a team, in a game. There's a pyramid of power. The ref, during the match, is actually sitting at the top. No matter how much anybody doesn't like it, they're there. And if you're a player on a team that isn't captain, you're pretty much at the bottom of the barrel. The only person lower than you is the fans in the stadium. So...
No, the water boy.
Yeah,
The water boy in the bench.
Yeah, but that's, there's a chain of command, and if I do believe players should always have a right to speak how they feel at least once. You get one, the reactionary, this is what I felt.
Hey!
If you felt this happened, after that, anything else could be yellow. And dude, isn't that enough? Isn't that enough to be frightful for the next X amount of minutes? Because now you have to be wise about what you say, what you do. Why did we decide to microscope in on that aspect of the game? Why not still continue to fine-tune the VAR in the offsides moment that we're waiting forever for? Or why not fine-tune the goal VAR check? Because that's the worst of the lot. When a goal is scored, and an entire stadium has to wait anywhere between 30 seconds and 3 to 5 minutes to celebrate the goal, as if it happened or not,
it's crazy.
Is ridiculous.
That's crazy, right?
It's almost like taking a moment that's supposed to be exciting, celebratory, and spontaneous, and making it predictable. And that takes away from the love of the game. Because when a goal is scored and everybody knows it, and in that instant, you get to celebrate. That's amazing. That's a release. If a goal is scored and now I have to wait, what is this computer going to say? And then I get a no. It's like, oh, man. If I wait and I get a yes, now this celebration is anticipated and less from the heart and realistic. Not that
but
it's
I still
not
think
there.
it's good. I
of
still
course
think it's good.
It's celebrating. It's a goal. Why wouldn't it be? I had to wait a minute to 5 minutes to express myself and learn that that's an actual goal. What's going on in that minute from the entire stadium? There's 80,000 people that are just little conversations going on. If there's 6 goals in the game, how often is that? So I'm just saying.
That's what they're doing. They're building up the tension.
Listen.
They're building it up for you. You're almost so close. Goal! Oh yeah, baby, the goal.
For me, life is way more entertaining and exciting with spontaneity than prediction. But people are different in this world. This is who I am. I know that's who I am. In the moment, spontaneity will always be better than predictability.
You know what? I gotta agree with that.
But that's what we do. With the VAR, we make it predictable. We can look at the replay of the goal 10 different angles, 10 different times. I've waited 3.5 minutes to find out the answer. And then it's a yes, and then we celebrate. Some people say, we get to celebrate twice. And I go, neither one is genuine.
The first one's genuine.
I guess, but what if it's taken away?
For 2 or 3 seconds, then you're
then you see the VAR check.
Then you go it's going to VAR. Let's see.
And now I got to sit in limbo and wait. And I don't think that's... when we made that change, I wasn't on board, and I still feel like that could use a lot more fine-tuning than our card system. Right? That's not...
the card system's fine, yeah.
It's not a poor representation or depiction of where we could focus to make the game better. I really feel like they're focusing in the wrong area. MLS, they're talking about you can't send players off the far side. You can save time. Like, they have their mind on the right topic. They're thinking about different ideas on how to do it. But they're just...
Execution is poor.
Yeah, bro. They're missing...
Execution is poor.
They're missing it. And you said you don't like any of the rules Arsene Wenger's come up with. And that's fair. I think that creating rules for soccer is really complex and hard thing to do. But right now, they're missing it.
Like
They're
kick-ins instead of throw-ins, no, not a fan.
I
Because then that'd make every single throw-in like a set piece.
Yeah.
Where I like that only if you have a long throw, you're able to actually have a set piece.
I don't know what the rule was from FIFA, but the Higuita rule was a time-wasting rule that is left in football because of what he was doing. Oh, back in the day, even when you were in possession, you could turn around and play your keeper. And they could grab it.
And receive, yeah.
And they could put it back down. And there was a lot of time going about this. Higuita was the complete opposite. You give him the ball, and if your team wasn't going forward, he would go forward. He would throw the ball out to himself. He'd dribble through half. He'd play 1-2s all the way to the byline and shoot goals. Well, as the representatives of football of the world watch this happen, they realize that's much better for our game. We're not going to allow people to play their keeper and grab it and play their keeper and grab it. Because we saw this guy for X amount of years, whenever he got the ball, present the game in a much more, we go play. And the amount of time that they cut and saved from that rule, now there we're talking about a situation where a rule was implemented
They
for
actually
the
did something
success
positive.
of the flow of football.
They actually did something positive.
It was the right change, the right change at the right time to increase the entertainment of the game. Mind you, this is the goalkeeper who famously did the scorpion on the goal line in the World Cup.
Stud.
That's him, right?
Stud.
And so
He is him.
he is him. If you watch his documentary on Netflix, you'll realize
Shout out Higuita.
that guy is him. But, you know,
He didn't get killed by the cartel.
which was another crazy
Shout
story
out.
of his life.
Shout out.
And how he operated in that whole situation is class. But I'll just go back to say that there's a moment where the people who run football change the rule to make the game better. I like where their brain is at as far as what they're trying to fix. They need to just take swings at it. I'm just saying they missed this one.
That don't mean they can do it on the next one. Hey, they get 3 strikes for a reason, so they're on strike 1 right now.
I'd say, yeah, 1 or 2. I mean, the VAR system was the
Let's
first
give it
for
2.
me.
Let's give it 2.
Was the first for me. And so, I mean, my little brother stopped watching the game the way that he used to because of these changes. So it's not little. You know, this is a dude that used to watch every single game every weekend. Now the game has changed in a way where he would actually rather sometimes watch American football. That breaks my heart. I'm like, what world are we living in where that has happened?
Hey, if someone wants to console your heart, where could they find you?
No, you can find me at ZJ Kaizen on Instagram or at Train Zone Sports on Instagram or YouTube. And what about you?
You find me at JC Kruger M or at Coach JCKM. We're getting the followers up organically. It's going little by little.
Yeah, day by day. It's
Doing
just a
good.
process.
Doing
Yeah. So, yeah, shout out. I would say shout out to the new crew neck.
You should name your boy Simba then.
You know what he never did was he never said, this is Train Zone Sports. Welcome to episode 19.
This is Pitchside Prospect.
We never said.
You can say it right now.
This is Pitchside Prospects. Welcome to episode 19.
This has been
This has been a wonderful episode,
very good.
and we'll catch you on number 20. That was the beginning and
Deuces.
the end.